Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martireno and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. So I want to welcome everybody to a really interesting, and I'm looking forward to this edition of the Behavioral Corner. You know, we hang here and try to run into interesting people that can help us understand lots of stuff. The show's about the way we behave and how that behavior impacts our emotional, psychological, spiritual well-being. And to that extent, we've got two great guys who really are in the trenches fighting this pandemic and bring to it a perspective that has a lot of importance when it comes to that social or community aspect. They are in the food and beverage industry, and that's putting it sort of business schoolish. I'll introduce them to you. Patrick Iselin is an old pal. Patrick is the CEO of a small independent company called Vintage Syndicate. They own and operate several bars and restaurants in the Philadelphia area. He joins us to discuss what's going on there. And a fellow, I was going to say in the green, but you're both wearing some green. That fellow to his, what would that be? His right is Fergie Cary. Fergie has described himself in the past as a publican, and that's with a P, a publican. Yeah. And in that regard, he sure is. He is one of the most famous bar owners, restaurant owners, innkeepers this city has ever produced. In that capacity, he has owned and operated some legendary joints. And I use joint when I say a place is a joint. I couldn't be saying anything more affectionate. Some wonderful, wonderful places, not least of which is Fergie's Pub, of course, and Monk's, which is, if you're a beer lover, you know Monk's. So I want to welcome both you guys to the Behavioral Corner. This is a real treat for me.
Oh, thank you, Steve. Looking forward to it.
So I'll begin with this Atlantic magazine article that I read the other day. I think it's just from maybe a week ago or so. It's very lengthy. It's about your business. It's about the impact. It's about what's going on and what the future holds. But I'm struck by the title. They title what has happened to your business as an extinction level event. Is it that bad, Patrick?
I think for many, absolutely. I think for small independent restaurants, dangerously so. We are at the mercy of landlords in many cases, certainly the general public, and for the first time in any meaningful way, the U.S. government. I would say that given the circumstances and given the restrictions that have been placed upon the restaurant industry, which unfortunately they're also not unilateral. For example, Philadelphia County, where we operate, is under much stricter restrictions than even neighboring Montgomery and Chester, all of whom today are still able to operate at 50% indoor capacity. If that were to be rolled up into the disastrous response from the U.S. government after the initial onset of this pandemic, a complete lack of response vis-a-vis support in the form of stimulus and what have you, given the ongoing restrictions that have been placed and how much restaurants, in particular bars, nightclubs, restaurants, have been singled out as a driver of this problem, we are facing almost nothing short of a public execution in terms of our inability to operate by law and our lack of help from government. So yeah, extinction level event, I don't think is hyperbolic.
Yeah. Well, that, Steve, would be, I hope the hell not.
Yeah.
That, an extinction level event. But Patrick mentions the federal government, but we are basically suffering a shit show because of lack of governing at local, state, and federal levels. It's despicable.
Yeah.
Yeah, staggering. You know, the truth of the matter is, from the standpoint you're talking about, the people you would expect to help, the simple truth of the matter is, at no level of government was anybody ready for this. I mean, right now everybody has heroes and villains, and there are really heroes and villains. But from the jump, no one was ready. Some rallied to the crisis, others did not. You guys are getting the absolute brunt of this, and I'll give you the perspective and you hear it from the outside, and that is, what's all the fuss about bars and restaurants? Tell people why that matters from an economic standpoint, because I don't think people associate, when they go into their favorite restaurant to get a burger and a beer, the number of people in the chain that are supported by that effort. It's big, right?
It's massive. Yeah, I mean, so like from the guy, like so the owners, all the staff, and then there's the food purveyors, like the guy who cleans the lines and who sharpens the knives, and it just goes on and on and out to the farms, so your chain is just broken, so there's no end product, so there's
no supply.
Yeah,
Patrick, do you think this attitude of this cavalier attitude about what's the fuss, it's just going out to eat, hurt? Obviously it hurt. Didn't mobilize people swift enough. I mean, when the airline industry gets in trouble, right? Everybody freaks out. Oh my God, we got to have an airline industry. And they go, well, we can get by without restaurants and bars. That hurt.
Yeah, I think that there's part of it is the fact that most people to some degree can cook themselves a burger. So they're not as reliant on us as an industry in order to feed them. They come to us because they don't want to cook themselves a burger, and because they want to socialize and so on and so forth. I also think that, and this is a little bit perhaps unkind to say, but I think it's fair to say, that there's a general sense of entitlement that has been for many, many years, perhaps forever, with restaurants. The gentleman who would like a burger feels entitled to a burger, feels entitled to go out and order and be given a burger that is to his satisfaction. And I think that generally there is less of a connection between the consumer and the publican than there is between the consumer and his desire to just be fed for money, in exchange for money. So there's less of an investment, I think, than many people might believe for the burger consumer. Many of them don't care who owns the restaurant. They just want the restaurant to be there, and they want to be able to get their burger on a whim when they wish to have it. But yeah, people can cook their own food at home. It's not critical. If somebody needs to get to Japan, they need an airplane, and that's not something that they have. The wheels of commerce and the inability for people to help themselves in that regard, I understand why people are more up in arms when the airline industry is struggling.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly the difference between a strategic industry and any other industry. I mean, nevertheless, I think it's been overlooked how the economic impact of shutting people off necessarily from dining out and going to a bar is enormous. Fergie, how many places are you currently operating, and how many were you operating before the shit hit the fan?
Well, I'm involved in 4 places, and all 4 are shut down now. So 4 and 0. Or 0 and 6.
Right.
But I still. I mean, we've recently shut down in the last. In the last 2 weeks, 11 days ago, we shut down on the Sunday after the indoor restrictions, where it was like no indoor dining whatsoever, went into a place 2 Fridays. Is it this day last week?
I'm so punch drunk that I
don't
can't.
know.
Yeah, right.
It was 2 Fridays ago. 2 Fridays ago, it went into effect, and it was so. Then we decided we would shut down on the Sunday, try and get the weekend out of the weekend. It was going to be a nice, bright, sunny weekend. So when by that Sunday evening, all 4 places were shut down. and the decision, like, well, emotionally tough, but economically not that tough, because it basically was, you're not making, before we got indoor dining shut down, we weren't making enough to pay rent then. So winter is coming. Things are not going to get better when you're just outside. Like so it was a financial decision was pretty bloody easy. Okay.
Yeah. I don't think the
money
public should
do this, and I'm going to lose less by doing this.
Yeah.
And I second guess. I'm in my bar every day. Anyway, now still wrapping things up and paying bills and stuff. And I went back in there last night to grab something, and I see a neighboring bar that seems to be doing well. Like last night, it was one of the only ones around the place, and I second guess. And then, so I don't know. The other thing we were talking about the mental health, like for small business owners, so I think of myself and Fergie's Pub, and also my old partner Tom Peters with Monk's Cafe. I mean, they're more than just business. That is your heart and soul. This is your selfish project. This is, you go in there every day and you love it. And then when something is happening to that business, like your health, not just your wealth, but your health and well-being is involved in that business too. And that takes a hit when you're shut down and when things are bad. You see people physically get ill when their businesses are that they love or fail, stuff like that. And now, like, we're all failing. So, like, in that, since 2019 was Fergie's Pub busiest year ever. And then if you told me, 10 months later, you'll be doing a GoFundMe to try and survive, I'll be like, you're crazy, man. Like, so again, nobody saw this coming. And there's always Ebola and SARS, whatever, but it's like, whatever. Like, it's another threat, and it never happens. And that's the way, I think that's the way the world thought about this, especially America was like, that's not going to happen. Then that shit never happens. They always talk about it, but then it happened, and here we are.
There's nothing wrong with a little denial. Of course, the United States leads the league now in being able to deny reality, and it's obviously killing people. You're so right about the irony. There's so many ironies and so many bitter truths about this thing. Just at the moment when you most need the comfort of community and maybe a place where you can go sit with some friends and break some bread and have some wine, gone. Can't have that. In fact, that could kill you. So don't do that. So it's crazy. What you just described from a business standpoint, Fergie, how many people that you employed are now impacted by those business decisions?
Between 100 and 200 people.
Patrick, how many for your group?
So directly employed by me, who are currently on the dole, something in the region of 185 across the 7 places that we were operating prior to the closure. And like Fergie, we are currently operating 0. So we made the same fairly easy financial decision to lose less money closing than attempt to open.
Right on.
In terms of knock on, hundreds and hundreds if you start considering line cleaners, pest control, all of the ancillary businesses. Restaurants employ an inordinate amount of people, and they are supported by an inordinate number of vendors of all kinds, food purveyors, soap purveyors, the list goes on and on. So directly, just shy of 200. Indirectly, I wouldn't be surprised if we touched another 400 or 500 lives.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What's the latest number you guys know of the restaurants that have gone dark and aren't coming back. I mean, it's like, it's how many, Fergie?
And then,
36?
Not coming back at all?
Yeah.
Hard to say.
Yeah, I don't know. You know, like City Tavern was the
Gone.
but there's you know, across from Fergie's Pub there's a small chain out of Jersey. They're called Brick Wall and Porta, and Brick Wall was their beer bar type of thing, and Porta was their pizza restaurant, which really I really liked it. I liked them, but they're right up. But they never opened Brick Wall after the shutdown, and then Porta closed there around a month ago. They told me, and I know the amount of money they were taking in was enough to cover payroll, but nothing else.
Yeah.
So it was like, and I know they have massive rent, like
Massive.
5-6 times the rent that I pay at Fergie's. But like, so they're.
So we're just taking what you guys described and multiplying it. You know, it's astonishing the number of people affected this from an economic standpoint. We're talking to Fergie Cary and Patrick Iselin about the devastating effect of the pandemic on the business end of what they do, which is food and beverage. We're going to get into the other stuff in a second about the emotional toll, because Fergie, you led us very naturally into it. One of the other things that you read about restaurants, and it was in that Atlantic article I mentioned, was the author makes the point that restaurants are really, you know, more than just restaurants. Pubs the same way. They're mirrors of the community, and now that's gone away. What do we lose? Publican is the great description for what you are. You're in the people business. You just happen to sell alcohol, but you're in the people business.
Absolutely.
And they've cut off you know, your raw material, which is people. Are you hearing from them how much they miss Fergie's Pub, how much they miss Monks?
Absolutely. I mentioned earlier on, I did a GoFundMe for Fergie's Pub, but it was I think around a month ago. And what it was we still had indoor dining, but the weather changed,
Right.
and then suddenly 1 week is like, oh, we did 50% of what we did last week, which was probably that. But you know, we're still way off from the year before. But it was just suddenly 50. And I said, like, if I don't borrow or do something now, like, yeah, I'm not making payroll next week. You know, I can sort of get through this week. But it was just I had to do this. So we did a GoFundMe. We wanted to raise $30,000, which I thought was the minimum. We made that in 18 hours. And then we also, we bumped it up to 60 grand. We made that, and I think we're around $67,000 right now. And that is money that I can basically sit on and use to stay closed, and yet hopefully to open up again.
Donated by your.
Oh yeah, so they were all
Right.
They were all there. But now, but another part of being a small business and involved in the community is we gave for years. We gave to theater, to music, the Fringe Festival. I ran the bar for the Fringe Festival for 10 years.
Yep.
You know, donated all my half of the profit. I'm on the board of I'm set on the board of a theatre company now called Inishnua Theatre Company that produces new plays from Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales. Before that, I was on the board of Brack Productions for 15 years. And but always giving, and always and when somebody has an accident and needs something, we'll do a fundraiser for you. We'll do this. We've always been giving. And then people gave back tenfold. It was, and the theater community, they stood up like nobody's business, and everybody, and so it was give and take. But yeah, they really, really missed us. And at Fergie's Pub, we had our 26th anniversary party on Monday night. We did it by Zoom. I had had like 40 to 50 people on a Zoom chat. Like it was like my TV show. I wore my nice white tuxedo jacket and I talked to everybody, and it was so much fun. But it was like, yeah, people are craving that thing. And again, when I first opened Fergie's Pub, I lived in like Bella Vista, and so we're going back 26 years ago. But in like South Philly, or well, you couldn't get a decent burger and a decent beer in a safe environment, right? So I opened Fergie's Pub, and then like all my friends and people who became my friends, they were like cycling up from the Italian market in South Philly, to come in. Like we definitely, there was this void, and then so that's 26 years ago, and then a week later, the Continental opens at Second and Market, and on the same day that Sugar Mom's opened around the corner from it, and it was like, and then it was. Things seem to develop and spread from there.
Fergie, it's great that you mentioned that, because those of us who've been in Philadelphia a very long time. I mean, I was born here and I've been in and out of town over the years working other places. But when I come back, when I first came back from, I think it was when I was in Boston, and came back, and Old City was now flourishing. It was like another place. I mean, no one went into that part of the city. No one went downtown in South Philadelphia unless they had relatives. Fishtown, the River Wards, no one. So when these places, when the city begins to get bigger, it always struck me as less a question of the city actually getting larger, but villages popping up. This little place is a village. And I'm telling you, in addition to the young urban pioneers, kids who wanted to get into the cheaper rents and didn't care about the reputation of the neighborhood, they're the first ones in. But right behind them is the guy who opens a restaurant selling cheap, good food.
Maybe not behind them, but maybe in front of them.
Right, so, maybe right alongside.
Well, so we are in Fishtown right now. Like a few blocks away in Northern Liberties, two guys opened Standard Tap, right? And
absolutely.
And that glued that neighborhood together. That's the way I see it. Like, it's like, oh yeah, then I went to that bar that was there before Standard Tap, the Bull and Whistle or something like that, and it was kind of still a dicey neighborhood and stuff. But the what those guys did, like, and I say that, and I've seen this many times too, like. This South Philly tap room was a more deliberate, like to recreating that from a developer, but he still did it. John Longacre, another friend of mine, the big developer in that neighborhood, but he knew what to do to anchor that neighborhood. He put in South Philly tap room, and I joked too. Like when times I heard they were like, they're not coming to like William Reed and Paul Kimport from Standard Tap and say, hey guys, you did a lot for this neighborhood, for this city. You don't have to pay taxes for a year. Fergie's Pub, I got an opportunity, a really cheap opportunity to get in there, and I took it. And I thought, well, this is if you're ever going to do a bar, like, well, this is it. So I did, and it was tight. It was in Center City. But like it was still a crappy neighborhood. But I was like, so we take that risk. We go in there and we bring people in. And now,
why not help? Why not? Where's the cavalry when you need help? It is fascinating, your whole scenario.
And if you look at 13th and Sansom now, that is Restaurant Row, man.
Right.
And it was like porn theater. Get your bike stolen, get mugged, like.
The only reason you went on that street was to park your car. You parked it in the parking lot and went someplace. Patrick, I don't want to make too big a point of this, but you guys are history buffs. You know this. That actual civilizations, established at the terminus of rivers where was fertile and you could grow crops and towns grew up. Well, that's exactly the role restaurants and bars played in cities growing up. That's exactly what they did.
100%. And if I may, Philadelphia in particular is especially interesting because Philadelphia is a truly residential city. People really live and work in Center City, Philadelphia, and in the surrounding neighborhoods. Restaurants, from a sort of social standpoint, are the glue that binds. People need a place to exchange ideas, create romances, and spin yarns. You know what I mean? And restaurants go into these neighborhoods sometimes immediately behind or often ahead. And if it's a well-executed place and people derive genuine joy from it, it's a big part of establishing these villages, these footholds. Every village needs a main street, and every village needs a meeting hall. And in Philadelphia in particular really lends itself that way because of the makeup of the city, as opposed to, I think, of cities like Pittsburgh, for example, where the downtown is after 5 p.m. is uninhabited. We're very fortunate in that regard. We're also a very social city. Philadelphians in general like to mix it up. I think it's a big part of the entire, and I don't think Philadelphia is unique in this regard by any stretch. The human condition requires that to a degree. It's been taken from us all, hopefully in the short term. And I do, it's certainly impactful to us. Fergie alluded to this earlier. He, as an owner operator, you're fully invested in these businesses. Sometimes it's disappointing that there's a general sense of entitlement in a lot of the clientele, not all of the clientele, where they don't seem to care as much. But the staff, there's pride of ownership, there's pride of execution. Restaurants and bars are incredibly familial atmospheres to work in. We are missing, from our end, we're missing our own social circle because it's the place where we mix it up too. And I think that the general public, whether they know it or not, are being robbed of this, and over a long enough period of time, it has to be impactful. There has to be.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
There's a price being paid for this psychically. Listen, it may not seem like there's a direct relationship between a spike in anxiety or substance abuse or overdoses by being cut off from people and scared all the time, scared of this disease, but there is. And the sooner they get the vaccine to the public, because that's it. We're at that point now. We're waiting for the vaccine. The better, because we're paying an enormous price for this psychologically. Yeah, guys.
So right next to Fergie's pub is a medical marijuana dispensary called Beyond Hello, and they so they are critical business, but essential business because they're medical marijuana dispensary. So Fergie's pub and all our places are shut down during the lockdown, but like you can still buy weed next door. Like so, my joke was like, after all these years, weed won. Weed was like alcohol was always, that's okay. Drugs are bad now. It's like alcohol is bad, but you can get your weed. Now, just before, a few days, the weekend before the election, right, I saw the long line outside the medical marijuana dispensary. And and I was like, oh, did they change their regulations? Are they having a sale? And I talked to one of the guys and said, no, everybody's just nervous that it'll be shut down again. It'll be shut down, or everybody's nervous that they're anxious about the election and society and what's going to happen with society after this election. So it was like, oh, we're going to get our weed now because we need it, And it was like, so I physically saw what you're talking about.
Well, no, I know exactly what you mean. I was going down the turnpike recently, and the digital sign announced that the medical marijuana dispensary, I forget in what town, would be open, and you could get curbside pickup. You didn't have to. So I got home and I said to my wife, it's amazing. The marijuana, which is now, legal, is back being sold out on the corner, just where it was when we used to buy it when it was illegal. So, I mean, nothing ever changes.
Yeah, but it's rich white men now, right?
Of course, of course.
So, let's get it. And, you think of government again, like, gambling is illegal, like, unless when we do it with the lottery. If you do a lottery type thing, that's illegal. Well, let us do it and make money.
Always important to choose your partners wisely. Let me ask you something. Here's the hard question at the sort of end of this thing. What's got to happen right now for you guys? Patrick, you have responsibility over a bunch of operations. Fergie, your places. What would have to happen in the next couple of days or weeks? You got Congress fighting about a stimulus package. What do you guys need to make it through the next, 3-4 months of darkness?
Money in our bank accounts now.
Money.
Yeah, another PPP.
Yeah, another round of PPP.
Definitely forgiveness. We don't need loans.
No.
We got our PPP. We got our loans. We need money, more money, and we need forgiveness. We want to make sure like that when this PPP all comes to an end, whatever, it's like, you're forgiven for that, but you still have this tax implication of getting so you owe $30,000. That's how it's looking right now.
Yeah, well, there's something hopeful coming out of Washington, if that can be said without falling down laughing. They've got a big bill there. They've got some people that want to talk. We're under a desperate race for time. I know you guys know that.
Getting it together. I mean, not to beat a dead horse or completely reiterate what Fergie just said, but it just has to be money. We talked about earlier about restaurants that haven't survived. Many of those, some of them came as a surprise, some of them didn't. I think people that were operating restaurants that were not doing particularly well prior to this and came into this. We were speaking for myself, very fortunate to come into this situation with no debt whatsoever. We're leaving with a shitload of it, not least our landlords, all of whom have kindly deferred rent, not forgiven a nickel of it though. So we're just racking up a bill at this point. We need somebody to come in and help us out with that. We need operating capital for the next few weeks, months, until we're told that we can safely operate and we're allowed to operate. But to Fergie's point, we don't need any more low interest loans. We're already swimming in debt that we've just picked up over this time period. We need gifts, bona fide, handout, bailout, call it what you will, financial help to get us over what we hope is the last remaining hump through into the spring.
Yeah.
But plain and simple,
money.
Cash on the.
Yeah, the answer to all our questions is always money. Listen, guys, I appreciate your time so much. I wish we're all in, it's a cliche. We are in this together. You are in a little deeper. I understand that. We need you desperately, as badly as you need your businesses back. Fergie Cary, Patrick Iselin, I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity to point out that the only reason I know these two guys, and they me, is that we intersected a fellow by the name of Brian Dilworth. And this is my first opportunity to say this. He's a great friend of a lot of people in this town. He passed away unexpectedly a while back, but it's remarkable that he brought, he can bring, this is what I cherish most about him. He was a great guy. Everybody loved him, but he introduced me to interesting people, good people, and I will forever be in his debt. I just wanted to mention that.
I would just like to point out, so Brian was big in the music booking business.
Yes, he was.
Also, in bars and restaurants a bit, and of course, loved to eat and drink. He died, I believe it was March 9th or 11th.
Yeah.
One friend joked, he said, Brian Dilworth dies and the music stops.
Yeah. It's so hard.
And then the bars are closed. I mean, Brian was a great guy, a close friend to all of us.
Yeah, one of my greatest friends, a legendary person in many regards. And I will say this, the greatest connector of people I've ever met.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, and you want to talk about mental health and well-being and social interaction. For a famously grumpy guy, he was on, by an order of magnitude, the most sort of intrinsically connected and understanding of the human condition and the ability to put people and matchmaking. Sorely missed.
With great grace. With great grace, he never looked like he was doing it. It never appeared like, let's put this guy together with that guy. Never did.
Yep.
He had the lightest touch in the world. And I once said to him, and I still mean it, he was a prince of the city. Amazing.
He's hanging out with him and his phone rings and it's his son Riley, and then his phone rings again and it's the district attorney, and his phone rings again and it's one of the Eagles or somebody in the music business. And then we did manage. It was just before shutdown, and when he died on a Monday, and then his wife said, well, why don't we all just meet at Garage Fishtown, one of Patrick's places, tonight at 8:00? And we could gather then, and we did, and it's so necessary. And like the rest of what we're all talking about in podcast, but like the social interaction. But for grieving, it is so like funerals are for the living. And we did have a get together for him that night, and that was important. And like we were all stunned. Like he died suddenly. We found out on a Monday morning, and we they were close friends, and we're all like in shock. And I'm standing there at Fishtown, garage in Fishtown, and then like I'm stunned. And then this big guy comes in and gives me a hug because he knows I'm close friend with Brian, and I realize it's Connor Barwin of the Eagles.
Yeah. All right. I want to mention. I still can't delete his name from my phone contacts.
He's still in my favorites.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Okay, guys. Listen, we can talk about this a lot. When the cloud lifts and we're all back up and operating, we'll do this again. It's been a real pleasure for me. I thank both of you. Good luck, guys.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Cheers, man.
Ciao.
Every storm runs out of rain, according to the great Maya Angelou. Her words can remind us of one very simple truth, that storms do cross our paths, but they don't last forever. So the question remains, how do we ride out this storm of COVID-19 and all the other storms life may throw our way? Where do we turn when issues such as mental health or substance abuse begin to deeply affect our lives? Look to Retreat Behavioral Health. With a team of industry-leading experts, they work tirelessly to provide compassionate, holistic, and affordable treatment. Call to learn more today. 855-802-6600. Retreat Behavioral Health, where healing happens.